Oh my god, this spacesuit makes me look totally fat. My butt's probably huge. I can't even touch my toes. Oh my god. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am SocioPsycho, and today we are going to look at GhostShip AfterMath. This is created by Sean Williams, and it's a first-person adventure survival game with some little action thrown in there and a little bit of a horror suspense theme along with it, available on PC. It starts where you are a scavenger team and you come across a ship in space. This ship seems to be abandoned or offline and you board the ship. It has this feeling that this game wants to be sort of Star Trek / Aliens / Dead Space / Doom 3. Now, I don't know exactly where the developer got his motivation or inspiration to make this game from, but it has a lot of elements from other successful titles. And so there's a lot of hope from looking at this game. A lot of hope that it will be really impressive. Which is the unfortunate part for when we go into the options menu. Now you do have view controls, but there's no way to actually rebind the keys. You always need to have rebindable keys. Not having this is a huge issue. But it doesn't just stop there, because when you run the options menu setup, it goes into this predetermined routine for you that you can't escape out of or skip until you click through every single of these selections. Screen resolutions, it's very limited in what you have, and the game has been created for virtual reality support, and perhaps they shouldn't have. Now I'm not sure how much time and effort that had to take to add those extra codes and lines to be able to make it playable with VR, but the game runs from performance issues as it is. So as you can see here, every time you click on something, you have to go through every single one. It doesn't give you something as simple as a list or anything of that nature. And when it comes to performance of the game, it's really unfortunate. The game runs at 120 frames per second without a problem. The frame rate of the game hasn't tanked on me whatsoever, but there has been a lot of clipping and tearing in the game. Unfortunately, a lot of the footage you see will have that in it. The game, in theory, is something that is truly interesting indeed. And we're going to start with the base story. Now, the story in the game is like I've said. It comes down to you board a ship that has been abandoned and is not transmitting a signal. Once you board it, you have this sense of you're not alone, something's definitely going on, and you realize there's immediate threat aboard the ship. While the story, the very basis of why you're there and what you are doing, is perfectly fine. It is filled out and implemented with no issues. The problem comes from the fact that the audio relayed to you from the command base is so terrible. The distortion that they decided to use in order to transmit the dialogue in the game was way overdone. You have the capability for interstellar galactic travel. You can move to different planets throughout space and cross solar systems. But we still haven't as a species been able to create a radio that doesn't sound like ass. And I'll let you listen to that right now so you can get a hint of what to expect.
This is the briefing room. Let's get ASME online, then we can see if we can access any of the briefs on the system. That is one of the plasma turrets. You don't want to go messing with that.
So the annoying part of the audio is not just the fact that it sounds really bad, but the fact that there is so much of it. You will be continuously bombarded with this really bad audio as you progress through your adventure in exploration of the ship. And so it gets really annoying really fast, and the story kind of slips away because of it. Which ties into the survival aspect of the game actually pretty well. Because you're on this ship, and there's not life support systems, you're in this spacesuit, and it has a limited amount of oxygen supply. If you don't get through the game to a certain point in order to extend how much oxygen you have, then you'll just simply die. You have the ability to sprint, but sprinting will take away more of your oxygen. So if you're in danger or trouble or just want to try to get around a map faster, whatever case, you're going to be using oxygen as a valuable resource in order to survive. And what they also did, which is nice, is you have a flashlight. Now the flashlight lasts 1 hour. There are no batteries, there is no way to recharge the flashlight. Every game you have a 1 hour timer and you're able to easily bring that up to see how much time you have left on your flashlight. Majority of times you won't even need a flashlight, but it's still an option that's there, and put into a survival sense, I had no issue with it being that way. The issue that I have when it comes to the survival element of the game is the fact that they put so much effort into level designing of the actual ship, and I feel they've made it too large. I feel the image or vision of a developer was twice the size that they were able to actually handle. In between the VR, the scale of the ship, and the way they tried implementing weapons and danger, it was too big of a project, so it wasn't able to get all of the perfection that it should have had. Now what do I mean by that, and why do I say something like that? In the survival element, majority of what you're doing is walking from point A to point B. There are monsters that will occasionally pop out, but the game is not a first-person shooter. You're not running through corridors, killing a bunch of monsters, going to your next achievement or location or spot, and then accomplishing a task and moving on through another wave of monsters. It's not a combat-based game. It has very weak and very laughable, even, combat, and it doesn't really help the survival atmosphere. If I used a very basic stealth element instead of a very basic combat element and made it where you can actually hide and escape from monsters, that would have added to the survival element without adding a whole new issue where you have to have combat not be hilarious. You make the monster so deadly that it can kill you easily, and so you just add a stealth element in to replace that. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. So when you do run into an enemy, as long as you don't allow them to touch you, you will not have an issue on that front. The weapons and the combat and the motions of the monsters are very simple, very basic, and really not anything that is all that impressive. Even the level design of the game feels very lacking. A lot of the ship has been built to a large scale, where they want to try to draw out this humongous ship, and while I can respect that, the first good hour of the game, you are just moving from point A to point B, and while you may come across a monster, which is not really all that threatening, the majority of your time is spent in movement in between the two locations, and the adventure part of the game, where you need to find and start up a generator, or read files on computers, or sneak through areas, is hurt or even killed by the performance of how the game runs, unfortunately. So the level design really suffers in the fact that they try to go large scale, and because of how the performance of the game runs, completely destroys in terms of a large scale that might have been interesting if done with a lot more polish. It turns it into something that just becomes more of an annoyance. When you're moving in between the different locations, how many monsters there may or may not be, how large you're moving in between the ship, what's your task, are all weighed down by the bugs. Now, I have not had the game crash on me, but I have had a large variation of movement issues, where I get stuck in doorways, I get stuck on ramps, I get stuck on stairs, and I have to continuously jump or just move over to the left or right a little bit to get through these obstacles, which you do and you deal with. But the issue that is exceedingly hard to deal with is the insane amount of tearing in the game. The lighting effects, or the wannabe lighting effects, and the flickering just completely destroy the atmosphere of the game because they continuously beride your screen with lines, as you can see right now. The game has a very simplistic attitude. A very simple, straightforward, this is what you're going to accomplish. You go onto a ship, you're going to complete some tasks, you have to have the tasks done in a certain manner in a certain time, otherwise you're going to run out of resources, such as oxygen, and there's a little bit of a threat. But unfortunately it doesn't do any of these decently, and the story that's supposed to tie it together is annoying and berating because of the audio, and the rest of the game you're berated by the visual impairments. It's not a smooth or fun experience, and it's upsetting to have to say something like that because I had a lot of hope for this game. I was really hoping that this would be a gem, but unfortunately it's not. It doesn't offer you the survivability that it wants to because how the game runs is very rugged at best, and any threat or danger element from monsters is laughable to the point where it takes away from worrying about dying from that front. Now, if you do manage to get killed, as it has a permadeath roguelike feel to it, your health does not regenerate, you are going to be hard pressed to find any way of getting your health back up, so you do need to be careful on some level. The game just fails from the underlying issue of not enough polish. It tries to be too much, and in turn is unable to be what it wants to. It does not run smooth, it does not play well, and the threats and dangers in the game are laughable at best. So at the end of the day, I cannot recommend this game, and it's unfortunate because it had such a strong idea of what it wanted to be, but it put too much of its resources into the wrong areas in development, or made itself too big, and it ended up hurting the game beyond a salvageable point. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. I'm SocioPsycho, and I'll see you next time.